Well, the CIA is once again coming after Zerohedge, the dissident financial news website, which refuses to dox themselves. They are relatively anonymous, although I believe it's been confirmed that the site is run by a Romanian guy who, of course, the media accuses of being a Russian troll. I don't know if that's true. I wouldn't, I wouldn't just assume that because somebody's from Eastern Europe that they automatically are like some Russian stooge, because a lot of people in Eastern Europe are not big fans of Russia. Maybe folks in the media are not familiar with people from Poland or Ukraine or yes, even Bulgaria or Romania. Romania, actually, when they were communist, were not affiliated very closely with the Soviets. Ceausescu did not like Russia. He was closer to China, I believe, and in fact, I think his best friend in the world was Kim Il-sung. Strangely enough, Ceausescu's Romania had a very similar ethos to North Korea, but that's a topic for a different day. Today we're discussing Zerohedge because the AP, the Associated Press in the United States, put out a story that essentially said U.S. intelligence officials say that Zerohedge is suspected of being Russian bots because they are trumpeting Russian narratives. By this, they mean that Zerohedge questions the official narrative of the U.S. government. That, of course, makes you a Russian troll. Because if you're either with Washington or you're with Moscow, it's as simple as that. You can't have your own independent perspective. You can't, independently, come to the conclusion that on, a specific issue, what Moscow is saying might be partially correct or might be, at the very least, more correct than what Washington is saying. Obviously, the biggest issue right now would be the matter of Ukraine and the phony war, which is not going to happen. A war which, is so non-existent that the president of Ukraine joked about it in a speech himself, and the soulless, humorless media in the West completely failed to see the irony in his statement. He made a joke about, oh, hey, apparently the Russians are going to be invading on February the 16th, which is tomorrow. And so the media ran with it. Oh, in the West, Zelensky says Russia will invade on February the 16th, and he had to come out and issue a statement and say, no, that was a joke. Well, Zelensky was a comedian. He was a comedian who ran for president, I think at least partially as a joke, and he won. And so, yes, the guy tells jokes from time to time, because it's that ridiculous for him to say. He didn't think he had to say in a speech, hey, this is a joke, because it's obviously ridiculous. The Russians aren't invading. But if, like Zerohedge, you point that out and you say, hey, the White House has been, pushing this, Russian invasion imminent narrative for 3 months, and it hasn't happened, they look kind of dumb now. And maybe the people who are still taking them seriously look pretty stupid. For that, Zerohedge has been labeled, Russian disinfo. When it comes to international politics, foreign relations, and the like, it's very easy if you want to be intellectually dishonest and low IQ, to just accuse the people who disagree with you of being on the side of whatever the boogeyman country is. That was very easy to do, certainly for the Soviets during the Cold War. Anyone who questioned Soviet foreign policy or even domestic policy, was labeled a CIA troll, an American lackey, and they would have been accused of repeating narratives that were trumpeted and originated from Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, which were American state broadcasting that was beamed into Eastern Europe in order to, give the American perspective, or give a dissident or a different perspective than the Soviet and other Eastern Bloc countries' state media would have given. And so therefore, yeah, it often had lined up with what the dissidents in those countries were saying. And so just because those people in those countries were technically saying a lot of the same things that American state media was saying, it didn't make them wrong. If you went back to the 1970s or the 1980s, I bet it would be pretty easy to find people on Radio Free Europe talking about how gulags were bad. And believe it or not, a lot of Russian dissidents probably also would have said in those times that gulags were bad. That doesn't mean that gulags are good. And so rather than addressing these specific criticisms about how gulags were bad and the Soviet government had done terrible things to its people in the past and continued to do certain bad things, although things not quite as bad as the gulags, into the 70s and 80s, it was easier for the government to just dismiss those people as American trolls. And much to their it did not work out well for them in the past, or in the end is what I'm trying to get at. Just dismissing people who have reasonable critiques of the government, real dissidents, as traitors or, just people who worship the enemy. That's not an argument. It doesn't make them go away. And so their numbers only grew. And eventually, people all across Eastern Europe rejected communism. And they were much more amenable overall to what the Americans were selling. And so the Americans these days are going to encounter something very similar in the way that they just condemn anyone who questions the regime in Washington and says, oh, well, you're just repeating Russian talking points. That's exactly what a Russian would say. Yes, a dissident media organization like Zerohedge might make some of the same points in certain news stories that Sputnik or RT would make, and they might even republish some of Sputnik or RT's articles because Sputnik and RT tend to want to trumpet dissident viewpoints when it comes to their analysis of American politics. They're doing the same things that Radio Liberty, Radio Free Europe did back then, which actually they still do. Believe it or not, the American government still funds Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe. And so, it's pretty funny. They do the exact same thing that the Russians do. And just the fact that, Radio Liberty and, Radio Free Europe exist doesn't mean that that everything they put out is wrong. They just put out things that are unflattering to the Russian government. So with that said, this is a dumb argument. And if the CIA is really that mad at you, you're on the right track. You are getting a lot of things right, or else they would have no reason to acknowledge you. The reason why the CIA is mad at Zerohedge is because they're effective, they're popular, and they speak a lot of inconvenient truths. Does that mean they get everything right? No, I'm sure they don't. They're only human, but, Zerohedge has been my favorite source for many, many years because they do a good job aggregating things. They summarize news of the day. It's just overall, a great resource, and it's not like they do original reporting. It's all stuff that you can cross-reference. It's a blog, basically. That's what Zerohedge is. It's a financial blog. It's been around for a long time. They don't have, anonymous sources. They take stuff that's relevant, they post it up, and you can go verify it yourself if you want to. And I've never, repeated anything that I've, read in Zerohedge that I haven't been able to verify myself. Because they just don't post stuff like that. Contributors who, when they repost people's blogs, in those sorts of articles, I'm sure there's, kooky stuff in those. There always is, because, Zerohedge likes to repost kooky people. But in the Tyler Durden authored articles, I don't find anything like that. And I usually don't read the stuff that they repost from other people. And a lot of the stuff that they repost are from very good people like Sven Henrik and Peter Schiff, and other people who question the CNBC Federal Reserve narrative. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.